Welcome to another episode of Unpopular Bible Stories that you just want to love. Today's story comes to us from the second book of Kings, chapter 6, verses 26 to 30, and is titled, Are You Hungry? This story takes place in the city of Samaria, which is in the central part of Palestine. It was a thriving, bustling city, but then the king of Syria and his army besieged or overwhelmed the city, and soon after there was a great famine. The trees dried up, and the famine was so bad that a donkey's head was sold for a large amount of money. And the Bible says a calf or pint of dove's dung, which is some vegetable, was sold for 5 pieces of silver, which was much more than the usual. When the people go to the market, they try to look happy, but it was hard because everything was so expensive. One day, the king of Israel was out walking, and a woman cried out to him, O king, live forever. Help, my lord, O king. And he said, If the Lord do not help thee, whence shall I help you? Out of the barn floor or out of the winepress? Anyway, he said to her, What is wrong with you? She was going to tell him anyways. So she said, This woman, my neighbor, she came to me and said, Give thy son that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. I was very shocked at the request, but then I thought about it. The famine was getting worse. My son was pretty young. We would eventually die, so eating him now might not be such a bad idea. So I said, I love my son, but yes, considering that the famine is so great, I will. So that night I boiled my son, and all of us, including her son, we all ate him. The next day, when it came time for us to eat her son, I looked for her and our son, but they were nowhere to be found. She had hid her son. When the king heard it, there was nothing that he could do. He rent his clothes. That was something that they did in those days when they were very hurt or upset. Why did God see it fit to include this story about cannibalism in the Bible? Since we didn't get the interpretation, we're going to have to extract some principles from this story. Firstly, not everybody must be told of our troubles because sometimes they know that they can't help, but they still want to hear our problems. The king already knew he couldn't help her, but he invited her to share. Tell your troubles to Jesus. He cares. Like David said in Psalm 55, verse 22, Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. Secondly, be careful of those with whom you enter into agreements. Some persons will be in it only for their benefit, and just shows that they have no love, because love worketh no ill to his neighbor. And if sinners entice you, do not consent. Thirdly, be careful of decisions made when in a difficult situation. We will all face trials, but in such times we should not be hasty to decide. Solomon's words live on. He said, The thoughts of the diligent tend only to plenteousness, but of everyone that is hasty only to want. She made a hasty decision and ended up wanting for her son and for food. And finally, do not be so hungry for something that you're willing to sacrifice others, even those you love, to get it. In his second book, chapter 3, verse 17, Peter says, Beware lest you also be led away with the error of the wicked, fall from your own steadfastness. Hard times will definitely come, but when they do, be careful, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. Let your request be made known unto God. Tell it to Jesus. He cares for you. Is there anything else that you picked up from this story? Thanks for watching this episode of Unpopular Bible Stories You Just Want to Love.